all here today. My name is Andre Anthony, and I'm one of our regional workforce development managers with the County of Los Angeles Economic and Business Development Division. And before we get started, let's take a moment to go over some housekeeping rules. So Scott, if you could go to the next slide, please. Great. So everyone, just please take a moment to please place yourselves on mute. And please feel free to use the chat feature to type any questions you may have. We'll try to answer them in the chat, and we'll save some time at the end of our presentation for a little Q&A. Also, please note that we are recording this presentation, and we plan to share it a little bit later with everyone, as well as on our social media. So now I would like to turn it over to Otto Solorzano, our Acting Director of WDACS, our Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services Department with the County of Los Angeles.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's such a pleasure seeing some of you. I guess this is the new normal, and we're getting used to the concept of having virtual meetings and doing everything virtually. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Otto Solorzano, as Andrea indicated. I'm the Acting Director of the Department of Workforce Development, Aging, and Community Services. This department is also known, or we call it WDACS. First, I would like to thank everyone for joining our town hall meeting today. I'd like to highlight the role of Supervisor Barger and her team for supporting this program and for their overall efforts to support employment in the Antelope Valley and Santa Clarita areas. Representing the 5th District, I would like to welcome Roberto Alvarez. He's the Deputy for Military and Veteran Affairs. So Roberto, welcome. You've been working us very closely on this project, and we thank you. I also would like to say thank you to Northrup Grumman. I think in particular, I'd like to say thank you to Kent Friend and Kevin Graves for their vision and their incredible partnership to provide good paying jobs in this area. And finally, let me just acknowledge the work of our America's Job Centers in Palmdale, Lancaster, Santa Clarita, Northeast San Fernando, as well as our veterans AJCC. We're extremely proud of the work they do each day to connect people with good paying jobs. These town halls provide a great opportunity to connect with our community and to help in the alignment of resources and services with the need of our businesses. We have a respected panel of industry experts gathered today. First, we would like to take a few minutes to provide you with resources related to COVID-19. Then we will turn it over to discuss economic resources specifically for the Antelope Valley. I think the slides are going faster than I am. If you could go back maybe one or two. One more. Then we will have an opportunity. So this is the agenda. We will have an opportunity to share with you some of the successes we have had partnering with Northrup Grumman and their recruiting efforts. And I just want to say this has been a big accomplishment, and we hope that our America's Job Centers can partner with many other businesses to replicate some of the virtual recruiting successes we have had with Northrup Grumman. So let's move to slide 4. The next slide. As it indicates, we've been conducting town halls across LA County to provide information specific to certain geographic areas. Today, of course, we're focused on our Antelope Valley business partners. Our goal is to align the resources of our AJCCs with the needs of the community. So let me go to the next slide. First, I want to take a moment to provide a very important update. Recently, there has been some impactful changes to the Federal Paycheck Protection Program, or better known as PPP. You now have 24 weeks to spend your funds instead of the original 8 weeks that was authorized, or until December 31st, whichever comes first. Also, the recent amendment reduces the requirement of loan forgiveness for payroll costs, reducing it from 75 to 60%. This amendment gives borrowers more freedom and flexibility to spend the money on non-payroll costs, such as mortgage, interest, rents, and utilities. And as you can see in the slides, there are many other things that are updates that we will share with all of you that you can take. But one of the things is that the payback period for PPP loans has been extended to a minimum of 5 years. So we hope that these updates will benefit our businesses as we all try to recover and reopen. And if you need more information, if you can see at the end of the slide, I would like to encourage you to visit the Small Business Administration website. There is a lot of information there that would be helpful to all of you. Now, let me just go to number 6, next slide, and that will be the end of my presentation. I would like to take a few minutes to highlight a few of the services that LA County offers. First, you can always get in contact with our LA County Disaster Help Center for information and available resources to help recover for this period. If you see the telephone number, 833-238-4450, and you can see the website, LA County Help Center. I hope that you are able to ask any questions, and you can also email us, as you can see the 2 email addresses there. And you may also visit the county's Department of Public Health website. There is a lot of information provided in this website specifically for all of the businesses.
You said the millionaire's tax. Do you mean the million homes? Or are you mean millionaire's tax?
Yeah, I don't think I said, did I say millionaire tax? My apologies if I did. I'm inviting you to access information from the Department of Public Health. And you'll find a lot of information there, which is very specific to each one of the industries. Now, thanks again for being here. Now I'd like to pass it back over to Scott from our Santa Clarita AJCC. Scott.
Thank you, Otto. We really appreciate you taking the time to be here with us today. So Lizzie, if you could go to the next slide for me, please. All right, so we have a bunch of different economic resources that we'd like to just present today. You might already be aware of many of them, but we're just going to go over them very briefly for those of you who might not know. Here in Santa Clarita, we have quite a few different resources, the first of which being the SCV Economic Development Center, founded by Holly Schroeder, who's LA County's chair of the Workforce Development Board, amongst many other things. They become a staple in our community, helping attract, retain, and expand diversity of businesses, especially those in key industry structures. You can also find similar business support and assistance in the Antelope Valley through Gavia, and in the San Fernando Valley through the Valley Economic Alliance. I also want to point out that it's an additional good thing for you to sign up with your local Chamber of Commerce and get their e-blasts, because it will help you keep up to date with current events and how those might affect your business forward, especially in the reopening process that we're experiencing right now. In these uncertain times, they're an amazing resource to keep your finger on the pulse of events and stay ahead of the curve. Also, as Otto mentioned, your Small Business Administration is going to be a really good no-cost business advising and low-cost training for existing and new businesses. Our local College of the Canyons here in Santa Clarita has also the Small Business Development Center, which is the SBA's largest service program and provides high-quality business and economic development assistance to both small businesses and entrepreneurs. All right, next slide, please, Lizzie. Now, next, we're going to move into a brief introduction of the aircraft fabrication program at Antelope Valley College and the role that our America's Job Centers of California played in creating strong, successful partnerships with Northrop Grumman. Next slide, please. So Northrop initially approached the city of Palmdale to discuss rapidly growing hiring needs. The city then connected them with AVC and the America's Job Centers of California. In these discussions, Northrop laid out the necessary qualifications, skills needed for entry-level participants and their expected hiring needs moving forward for the next couple of years. A curriculum was established to be taught at Antelope Valley College. The AJCCs would then act as one of the funding sources and a pipeline for new students to start careers in the aerospace industry. Each individual completes accelerated coursework and at the end receives an aerospace manufacturing certificate, but the coup de grace being an interview with the Northrop Grumman hiring person. Since the creation of this collaboration, our America's Job Centers have helped to create and maintain robust partnerships through constant communication and adapting to the changing needs of the business. Now, while not every company will have the requirement for hundreds of new employees every year, such as Northrop, this kind of business relationship is just one of the fundamental services that America's Job Centers can provide to both employers large and small. All right. Northrop Grumman is one of our largest and our strongest partnerships, and we collaborate with them regularly to meet their hiring needs through not only job fairs, but also recruitment events. In March, our recruitment event was fully up and running with initial applicants attending in person at the Palmdale Job Center. Unfortunately, due to the onset of COVID-19, we were faced with a pretty daunting task of trying to pivot from in-person to virtual and pre-screening. After the success of that event, we collaborated again in May with even greater results. I'll speak more about our process for these virtual recruitments in just a moment, but first I'd like to introduce our next guest speakers from Northrop Grumman, starting with Director of Aeronautics Systems and Operations, Kevin Graves, followed by their Talent Acquisition Staffing Manager, Ken Friend. So Kevin, if you wouldn't mind taking it away.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you. This is Kevin Graves here with Northrop Grumman. It's a pleasure to put a face to some of the names that I've been hearing about for so many months here. So I just want to, first of all, thank you for having us here. Thank you for including Northrop Grumman in your efforts. You know, we've been doing this for decades in the Antelope Valley, but no other time than I think today have we had such partnership and collaboration as we do today. And I think that's just due to the hard work and the dedication of the people here on this call. So I just, first of all, want to say thank you, Andre, for having us, and Otto for your kind words at the beginning, and Scott for the collaboration that we've had across the board with AJCC. And somebody mentioned it earlier. I'm probably going to leave somebody out, but I just want to say thanks to the Antelope Valley AJCC, the Veterans AJCC, Santa Clarita, EDD, the Jewish Vocational Services, WDACS, and the list goes on. We could not have done this. We could not have made the impact that we did to the community of Palmdale and Lancaster and Santa Clarita without the partnership. Really, most of this credit, and I don't want to steal his thunder, is Ken Friend, who's on the line here. And I've been at this company for 16 years, and not once have I met somebody as dedicated and as passionate about the community. For those of you that don't know Ken's story, he picked up his entire life and literally sold his farm to move out to Palmdale to be a part of this community and to make a difference. So I was thrilled to have Ken join our team. He's making a huge impact, and a lot of the credit and the partnerships are really due to his dedication. I don't think Ken sleeps very often. At least every time I've tried to call him, no matter what time of day, he picks up his phone. So so I just want to say thanks to everybody on the call, and I'm gonna hand this over to Ken.
All right, thank you, Kevin, and I appreciate the kind words, but it is a partnership that we definitely do. I want to talk a little bit about the virtual events that we have been you have been supporting us, and the partnership that we have with the AVC and the goodwill and the organizations that Kevin had mentioned earlier. I just want to elaborate that I give to you guys for helping us out. We could not have been successful without your help. Through that event, Northrop Grumman is continuing to hire through this COVID-19. It hasn't slowed us down even the littlest bit. So we continue to hire through what we're going through today. We have changed the way that we do a little bit of our hiring is turned a lot of it over to virtual. We're doing virtual interviews, virtual events, and the team that supported us really came together and made it a great success. Not only did they pre-screen the candidates, they drove the candidates to the requisitions, they scheduled the interviews, and they also attended weekly staffing calls with my staff to make sure that they was finding the right candidates that would meet our needs so that we could get them on board. And I really appreciate the effort that went into doing that. This allowed my recruiters where they didn't have to really prepare for the event. It allowed them to go on with their day-to-day activities and continue to work day-to-day. Really, the only thing they had to do was show up at the event to make sure that the interviews got through and to pretty much coach the managers on through the event. So what this event does for us in the partnership with the people on the call and that supported us is that it allows the citizens of Antelope Valley a career with Northrop Grumman. And we don't just offer them a job, we are offering them a career. They can take to the world, their career with Northrop Grumman and go from starting off on the shop floor, clean up to where they're into management. So we are offering them a career whenever we are hiring them and bringing them on board. And I just want to thank everybody that supported us and made this a success. And thanks from the bottom of my heart. And I turn it back over to you, Scott.
Thank you so much. A big thank you, Ken and Kevin, for taking the time to be here with us today. I think I can speak for all of us here at the America's Job Centers and everyone at WDACS that we truly value the partnership that you've allowed us to create with you. The success of this collaboration is something that we hope to duplicate in other sectors and to help even more businesses and job seekers all across LA County. So we really appreciate you all. Now, as I mentioned before, Lizzie, if you go to the next slide, please. As mentioned before, these two recruitment events in March and in May had to pivot from in-person to virtual very quickly. The first step was getting detailed job descriptions from the employer and then discussing with their hiring team on just the minimum qualifications and skill sets applicants required for each position. This is part of what we at LA County call our business needs assessments, which allows us to better assist employers and also to provide the proper business services that they require. The positions that they were hiring for in these two recruitment events included a wide range of different industries from manufacturing, engineering, supply chain and logistics, and more. And again, the most vital aspect of these collaborations is clear and consistent communication with the employer and after the process to not only ensure that we have only qualified individuals being selected to be moving forward, but we also have to consider the follow-up as a key to ensuring that the employers are satisfied with the services we provide and to maintain a healthy relationship and help us constantly improve our services and adapt to changing times. So over the course of the two events, we utilized Eventbrite along with other social media platforms to promote and field potential candidates. Each candidate was contacted by the AJCC staff to obtain their updated resumes and which positions they wished to apply for. We had 4 different AJCCs, as were mentioned: San Fernando, Palmdale, Santa Clarita, and the Veterans AJCC in LA. Each event had approximately 600 applicants for over roughly 1,200 total job seekers. We had to split all of these up evenly between the 4 AJCCs, with the veterans obviously going to the Veterans AJCC. Now, to handle the sheer volume, the most effective way we found was to have a shared location for the data, in this case being SharePoint. We had a living document this way where anyone could access and check and update candidates' information and status during the pre-screening process. I also want to give a really big thanks to David Santa Maria, Richard Mitchell, and all of the Palmdale AJCC staff for filtering through these hundreds of resumes and applicants and distributing them all to us so that we could continue with this process. Centers had roughly between 4 to 8 individuals per AJCC, each of which had strong resume writing and interviewing experience, and they were tasked with initially reviewing resumes against the job descriptions and the minimum requirements. We took roughly 2 weeks per event, about a couple dozen hours per event, where the team set up pre-screenings via Zoom or over the to those who met those minimum requirements. We developed our own specific interview questions as well, based on those qualifications, to make sure that subsequently submitted applicants were reviewed and met the standards for Northrup's positions. To ensure that their needs were met, it was also essential that we had one point of contact per AJCC who consistently communicated with 1 or 2 individuals at Northrop Grumman. In this particular case being the wonderful Ken Friend and Nicole Kang, who I can't thank enough for her continued support. Those who passed the virtual pre-screening were then submitted to Northrop Grumman with instructions on how to follow their online application process, the next steps, and what to expect. As we agreed in our initial meetings with Northrop, their hiring managers then utilized the list of candidates that we put forward to look them up and review each resume via their website application program. Those who met the qualifications were then contacted to set up an interview with Northrop's hiring staff. This is a key part, as it's very important because some businesses only require a resume referral for open positions, whereas a lot of companies now are actually having their own application processes through their website. Setting up a clear and definitive plan from start to finish allows both the AJCCs and the employers to create a customized recruitment process without the company having to change their online application methods that they already have set up and are in place. These ATSs, or applicant tracking systems, are very efficient. And by providing the employer a list of these pre-screened candidates, they can easily find and review those job seekers for potential employment. Now, as you heard from Ken and Kevin, this resulted in hundreds of career pathway job offers at one of the largest aerospace and defense companies in the world. I want to again give a special thanks to Ken Friend and Nicole Kang from their talent acquisition team, absolutely instrumental in making sure these events ran as smoothly as possible. The more that we continued to learn about their process and how it worked, the better we were able to assist them with this recruiting effort, and hopefully do many, many more. What we've discussed today is a very unique need, but this is merely one of the many services that can be provided by the America's Job Centers of California. Whether you're looking to reopen and you need a dozen forklifters ASAP, or you're a small business and you only need to hire one highly skilled candidate, the America's Job Centers of California have a proven process that can be customized to help you and your business's specific hiring needs. All of our services are, of course, at no cost to you, and our business service representatives are just a phone call or an email away. We are here for you and for our community, so please give us a call. I'm going to then hand it over to Roberto Alvarez from the Military and Veterans Affairs Department.
So let me clarify. I'm actually with Supervisor Catherine Barker's office. I'm her deputy for Military and Veterans Affairs. But I just wanted to take the time to really express our gratitude to Northrop, our government partners, and our county family. I think, as the director pointed out, this is definitely a new normal, but this showcases the ability to adapt to this virtual reality that we have now. For the supervisor and for our office, the Antelope Valley is a very important part of our district. We're very cognizant that aerospace is ingrained in that community. So this has been a great opportunity for us to partner and to help propel this even more forward. So much gratitude to Mr. Friend, who has just been outstanding, as some of the speakers have noted. There's especially one area for Mr. Friend that I am really grateful for, and that's for his commitment to hiring veterans. I think for the supervisor and for our office, we talk about important parts of our community, but to take the skills that they have and really translate it in a way to hire a workforce that's already trained, already has the capabilities to us, has highlighted the importance of really highlighting these public-private partnerships, because it's through this mutual work that we can expedite our resources and make sure that we're as efficient as possible. So just to everyone on the team, we're really grateful for everything, and I think this is a good example for a lot of our businesses in the area where, if we don't have all the resources, we can reach out to some of our government partners and see how we can further collaborate. So thank you all for the time.
All right, thank you very much, Roberto. Lizzie, if you go to the next slide, and we'll go with our Q&A section. If anyone has any pertinent questions, please type them in the chat and we will address them as quickly as we can.
Scott, right now, thank you so much for providing so much information. I think that's very valuable in highlighting the partnership. As you think through and you think back, and I guess Scott and Ken and Kevin, as you think back through the process, can you maybe share some lessons learned with the group as other employers and other teams think about utilizing virtual recruitment in this current state that we're in right now?
It's a great question. Going back to lessons learned, is that one, we've got to be flexible. We've got to adjust to what's happening in our environment and what's happening in our surrounding, as far as like we had to deal with COVID-19. So us as a team, and I'm adding, referring to the team as everybody that supported us, we had to be flexible in a way that we had to change the way that we operated, as far as moving from where it was going to be an in-person event to where it was total 100% virtual. And so it was just making that change so that we could be successful. So it's just being flexible and working together as one to make sure that we are successful.
Yeah, hey, Ken, I'll just echo that, right? I think for those of you that probably don't know, we were actually advised to cancel the event in March. I think we were getting close to the second week of March, and we had 350 candidates lined up for an in-person event. And within 3 days after we were told to cancel the event, with all the activities that were going on and the uncertainty with COVID, we took that very seriously. We said, well, okay, how can we do this without putting anybody in harm's way? And the fact that we were able to put a plan together to pull this event off within 3 days to figure out how to do this virtually, I would agree. I think the whole idea of being agile and being open to the shifting demands was critical for making this event happen. We're still learning things as we go along. We're still adjusting. We're still pivoting to the idea of not interviewing people face to face. So that's a little bit of a cultural shift for us. But the company seems to be embracing it. Our hiring managers seem to be embracing it. So we're learning with you, and as we learn more, we just want to share successes. So if there's things that you guys are hearing that are working with other employers, we're happy to listen to.
Yeah, and I want to also add, I want to make sure that I cover the numbers that we was able to achieve, and I left it off, but we had interviewed close to 500, probably over 500 candidates with over 400 offers accepted. Which is great numbers. Without their help, there's no way we could have achieved that. And I just want to make sure that I did put out the numbers that we was able to do.
Great. So to piggyback on what Kevin said around shifting to hiring people that you have not met in person, can you talk a little bit about that and that shift in the way of doing business and the way of hiring and what that means now?
Yeah, I'll start. Well, I think it's just it's a mindset. We have hiring managers that are just used to doing things a certain way, and this is the way we've always done things. Well, never has that word agility ever meant so much to our hiring managers as over the last 3 months. It also helps to have a lot of demand pressure coming from the business to say, hey, how are we going to grow and how are we going to meet the growing demands of some of the more recent programs that we've won, which is driving a lot of our growth. So that certainly helps. So in a way, we were forced to kind of shift the model, and we still, you know, to be truthful, we still have some managers that are somewhat resistant. So we're working through that. It's not easy with certain managers. Some are, I think, very agile and flexible and adaptable to new things. So we're learning, but we're making good progress. I think by and large, most part, everybody seems to be adapting to the process, and you know, we haven't really seen a huge impact as far as production from the people that we've hired virtually versus face to face. So I'm sure there'll be some lessons learned as time goes on, because a lot of those people are still coming on board.
So as we think about time, and we see that there is a question in the chat around time from hiring to meeting new supervisor, et cetera. But before we talk about that timeline, I'd like to back up one step and talk about the timeline to implement a virtual recruiting strategy. We know right now we have many employers. You are in a fortunate situation where you're still hiring, but we know that employers maybe are maybe not thinking about that right now. But the moment that the demand does arise again, talk a little bit maybe about the timeline from the demand to, you know, actually having an event, working with the AJCC, collaborating to the time of hire.
From the time that I reached out to everybody for support, the timeline, you know, the thing that I like about the workforce and goodwill and the people that supported this event is that it don't take a lot of time to set it up, because they've got the buy-in, right? So they support us, and if we say, hey, look, we want to try to attempt to do this way, they're going to do everything they possibly can to meet our needs. So as far as the timeline, like Kevin had addressed, 3 days prior to the first event we did in March, it was supposed to be an in-person where they had to adjust. So they had to reach out to the candidate again to let them know that we're not doing it in person. We're now doing this virtual. So it took a lot of work on their parts, but as far as the timeline, it was very short. It's just having, putting the steps into place and then acting on the steps.
Right. And then thinking about, you know, the question in the chat, at what point will the supervisor meet the new hire, first day on the job, from, you know, I guess the closure of the virtual recruiting for a candidate, I guess that HR process of starting a new job. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yep. Some of the people that was on the event had their secret clearance. So they did have a clearance. So they're starting within 30 to 45 days. There's two processes to our hiring. One is they have to have a clearance to work on the equipment that they're going to be working on or building. And then the second thing is that they have to have a PARS or the Air Force's approval to come in and work on that. So there's two steps to the process, the clearing process. So it normally takes around 45 days after a person accepts an offer for them to come and start. And some of them have already started with us. The people that did not have a clearance, we put them in for a clearance. And we have a process now where we're speeding up the process for a clearance. So it don't take as long, but they're looking at around 2 to 3 months before they actually start with the company. But we stay engaged. We do stay engaged with the candidate, letting them know that, hey, look, you're in the clearance process, and keeping them engaged.
Great. That's good. So I'd like to pose a question to Scott and our AJCC staff. We've been able to hear from Ken and Kevin, but Scott and the rest of our AJCC staff, as you think about the timeline from an AJCC perspective around contact with the business, designing a strategic plan around a virtual recruitment event, maybe can you talk a little bit more in depth about that process, your timeline, and maybe some of your lessons learned?
Oh, absolutely. So I want to piggyback a little bit off of what they said previously about being flexible. because I think that's kind of the key word for this whole COVID-19 event that we're going through, is that no two companies are going to be the same. Everyone's hiring process is different. And so while with Northrop Grumman, they have been extremely quick with us, and that's a key thing that I learned, is that communication has to be clear and consistent with their hiring managers and their staff, so that if something does change, we can turn on a dime. If that's not a consistent mode of communication, then we're not going to be able to do it quickly, and that will make the process extend longer than it needs to. For them, I know when we had to change something like going from in-person to virtual, we did that in a couple days. I can't speak to how long that might take with other companies, but I can definitely say that with Northrop, it was one of the quickest and easiest transitions that I've done in a recruitment event.
Great.
Hi, this is David Santamaria, Business Services Manager over at the Antelope Valley AJCC. And just to add to what Scott was mentioning, also depending on the amount of positions that are available, depending on the need of the employer. Sometimes as employers say you need about 10 positions filled, sometimes it's more than that, 20, 30. So it depends on the size of the event. Also determines how we go about how many days it takes us for us to plan out the recruitment process for there. Also, it also depends on if the employer is requesting them to be pre-screening prior to the recruitment event. This is something we can cover as well.
Great. Can you talk a little bit too about the candidate process and how you work with the candidates to evaluate their skills, ensure that they are prepared or are able to facilitate and have discussion virtually, which is a very unique perspective from the candidate position as well. And so you're bridging the gap between both. So maybe talk a little bit from the candidate perspective.
Sure. So we do have also case management services. So we do have participants already on caseload. So when they meet with a career planner, we work on interviewing skills, maybe resume updating. As we know, some candidates could be very good at what they do. However, they're not too well on the interviewing perspective, or maybe the resume, they're not too computer savvy. So we do assist them in preparing a well-written resume and also how to give correct answers during an interview process. Besides that, let's say a participant needs some type of training that will make them more employable. Maybe some type of certification that would land him that job opportunity. So we do work with them one-on-one to provide them these services as well and make them a ideal candidate for the position.
Great. Okay. Scott, did you want to add anything to that, or?
I think David spoke to it very well. We'll go back to Mike Pastine's question in just a moment, but I wanted to address Isidro's question regarding a learning curve with job seekers in a new virtual recruitment world and how AJCCs can assist with that. So as David had mentioned, we do have individuals who are not exactly computer savvy, or individuals that might have been working in manufacturing for the last 10 or 15 years, and they don't even have a resume anymore. And so we can sit down with them, in this case, having to be 6 feet away, and really walk them through. And I've actually done for these recruitments, helping them over the phone, setting up Zoom on their computer, and then having them share their screen so we can walk them through the process of how to apply on websites like Northrop Grumman or for whatever employer they might be trying to get in contact with. And also being on the phone with them as we're working on their resume and doing their, doing different interview questions and things such as that, so that they can really feel prepared and confident when they go into those interviews and not feel, that they're not able to really get this job because they haven't interviewed in a very long time.
So, we have a good segue to an additional topic, focusing on the current state of the economy and as businesses are starting to reopen. And you think about businesses that may only want to hire a few people. So from a Northrop perspective, it's a little bit of a larger organization, but maybe talk a little bit about a small business who might be listening in, wanting to hire a few folks. for some positions as they reopen or as they move forward in this new world?
This is Ricky at the Antelope Valley AJCC. I can provide a little bit of information on this. So, you know, whether the business is hiring 2 positions or hundreds of positions, such as Northrup, we treat it the same. You know, the commitment to that business and then providing the candidates for those openings, it's going to be the same. If a business is not as tech savvy as Northrup, you know, maybe not too inclined to be able to use virtual settings, we do have the technology to provide. So if you don't have it on your site, you can use our facilities. We can help not only the job seeker, but also the employer to create a more dynamic and efficient virtual meeting place to where they can find the correct candidate. So to answer that question, the amount of openings is not what we look at. We look at the need to fulfill, you know, employment in the region. So we're going to treat it the same way across the board.
Great. And then to add to what Ricky just said, we can also help with on-the-job training. And this is to help offset a new or incumbent employee training cost with access to California state subsidized training funds. So what this means is that when we have a participant that is going to start employment, we could offer this service to the employer where they'll train a particular individual in a certain position, and we can cover the expenses for training for a certain period of time.
Great. So adding on to the training, looks like we have a question in the chat. You know, do the AJCCs work with local community colleges, and maybe talk a little bit about the partnerships that we have with community colleges in different regions to prepare candidates for positions, you know, a little bit about that collaboration.
Sure. So one of the big programs that we do with our local community college, College of the Canyons, is that we work with them to run a computer numerical code machinist cohort, where it's anywhere between around 7 to 10 individuals that go through this rigorous training process in classes, getting on-hand training from, you know, professionals. And once they finish, they actually are able to get jobs very quickly. Most of the time we have around 100% placement rate. It's not always the case, but it's such a high demand position at the moment, and has been, that we've had a lot of success with working with the community college to do cohorts such as this.
Great, great, thank you. So looks like another topic for us to discuss and turn to. What if businesses are struggling to retain workers or to avert layoffs, or can you maybe discuss a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So we have things that are called rapid response. Those usually go into effect when a company is looking to have a layoff or potentially having to close their site. This is something that we obviously try to avoid with rapid response services. Our local representative for our region is actually Kendra Kennard, and she's an amazing person who has done so much to help these businesses avoid layoffs if they can help it. We talk with them about work sharing programs to potentially have some of their wages subsidized so they don't have to lay off as many workers if that's something that they're looking like they might have to do. And then if they do still need to go down that route of doing some layoffs or a closure, we meet with the employer and their human resources department or whoever, and we discuss what they would like to do going forward. We have the Department of Labor, the America's Job Centers, we have people from Covered California. A whole group of people comes together to present to these dislocated workers in order to give them all the resources that they need to move forward. And at the job centers, we can actually offer them funding for supportive services. We can also work with them to see if they want to go into a particular training to upskill themselves, if they want to change career trajectories and really improve themselves. We lay it all out for them in the presentation, and we give them our contact info so that we can work with them once the orientation is over with. But we've had a lot of success with that in the past.
Great, great, thank you. So, you know, I'd like to turn it back to our topic of our virtual recruitment strategies, and I'd like to pose a question to to Scott, to David, to Ricky, but also to Ken and Kevin. As you think about a business coming to our AJCCs to have a conversation or just to start the conversation about virtual recruiting, what is one thing you would offer up to a business as you're thinking about engaging our AJCC?
Okay, I'll speak on based upon my experience. So I think it'll depend on the level of positions that they'll be hiring for. So for example, if it's a entry level standpoint, then one of the things that we could offer to them is the ability to assist them with the training cost of a person. So as you know, many companies, when they hire somebody, they do still have to train them in the specific job duties of that position, even if they already have prior experience. So we offer the availability of the on-the-job training, so in order for that person to kind of get up to speed with the regular employees, and also the business will not lose funds on it. So that's one of the things we offer. Another thing that we could offer as well is the opportunity to hire people that have already been through our cohort trainings. So as Scott mentioned, we do have collaborations with training schools. And let's say that we had a CNC cohort. So if this employer is hiring some type of machine operator or even a CNC, then we offer the opportunity for them to hire some of these trainees that are completing training.
Great. So to continue, thank you so much, David. So to continue that, you know, as employers are thinking, what are some of the things that others would say that they should think about as they want to come to the AJCC to start the conversation? So, you know, David mentioned about thinking about the level that you want to hire at, and maybe some of the skill sets that may or may not be needed at that level. But is there any other advice that anyone would like to offer up for other businesses?
Yeah.
Go
ahead. Yeah, this is Ken. One of the advice that I would give is just don't hesitate. Come with the plan and be ready for them to move out on your plan, because you know, you come with your plan and they're ready to take action right away. So my advice would be don't hesitate, go. They're there to help. And
Great, thank you. Anyone else want to offer up some advice?
I was about to say that one thing that I always ask for when I'm assisting an employer is a job description, a written job description of such position, because that allows the AJCC to know exactly what the employer wants. If, for example, if they want somebody with a particular amount of years of experience, then we can land we can find that candidate. Maybe a position at a certain pay rate, maybe a position with a certain skill set that some other skill sets might be unique to that position. So I would say a specific written job description of the position that's being filled.
And I just wanted to piggyback off of what Ken was saying. Having a plan when you approach us is obviously very helpful and important. But if you don't by any chance have a plan, but you need to move on hiring someone quickly because there is a desperate need, we are more than happy and willing to sit down with you and figure out a plan of action so that we can address that need. So if you don't have the time to create that plan, we will absolutely help you create it.
So I just want to add just a thought on this. I think there was some really good suggestions. Something that has really worked well for our business, especially when the job market was hovering about a 4.5 unemployment rate. I realize things have changed a little bit now, but one thing that we learned through going through that period was we always were looking for the 110% solution. It was the Northrup Grumman way. What we learned the hard way was, you know, we were trying to find people. It was taking so long to find them that and in some cases we go 6 to 7 months, 8 months without filling those needs. And what we learned is we kind of shifted our way of thinking, and we went to the 80% solution. And we actually put a little bit more emphasis on soft skills and leadership character. And so we built that into our process. So any businesses are out there that are thinking, hey, I've got to find the perfect person. Well, oftentimes, the 80% solution with somebody who has the right leadership character, quality, integrity is actually a better fit for the job than the 110% solution. We're learning that in our business, and I think it'll probably stick with us even when the unemployment rate kind of maybe normalizes to a different level than what it was before.
Right. I think that's an excellent point about thinking about the skill sets in a different way instead of maybe 100%, and candidates that maybe possess certain skill sets that would still be a great fit after training or after learning, etc. Because the AJCCs have access to a lot of different candidates, and we are currently aware of the unemployment, but as people are looking for employment, looking maybe to change industries, change opportunities and jobs, that they may bring a lot of different skill sets that may be valuable to employers. And it's just maybe thinking through that a little bit and seeing what some of those good skill sets are that could be a good fit. And like you said, the possibility of a great candidate, that could fit and be a hard worker or just fit to your organization's culture, etc. So I do think that that's a great point to highlight. Flexibility as you're thinking about candidates, but also thinking about the candidates that the AJCCs have access to and can provide for as businesses are looking to fill roles. So I think that's a great point. Great. So just wanted to take a few minutes to open it up to anyone that may have some additional burning questions while we still have a couple minutes left. Okay. All right. So it looks like there may or may not be any questions, but what I'll do is I'll turn it back over to Scott for a few minutes to close us out.
Thank you very much. All right, so here is a lovely map that Andre provided for us that shows all of the different locations for the America's Job Centers throughout Los Angeles County. I'll provide this link as well in the chat so that you can all look by your zip code to find the closest America's Job Center to you and find the best person to speak to once you call them. It's best to immediately ask for their business service representative, but if they are not available at that time, you can certainly get their contact info. Or Lizzie, if you go to the next slide, please. This is the contact information for myself, Catalina Rodriguez, and Ricky Mitchell at 3 different America's Job Centers we have in Region 1 for LA County. If you need any further assistance or you want us to put you in contact with your closest business service representative, please reach out to one of us and we'd be happy to assist you with that. And as always, unless anyone has any other further questions, thank you so much for attending. These are a lot of work to put together, and I want to thank Otto, Roberto, Kevin, and Ken, and everyone for attending and for participating and giving such great presentations.
Great. Thank you very much. That concludes our event today. Have a great day.
Thanks. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.